There we go. All right. I would love for you to help give me a warm welcome to Johanne Lemaire. She is somebody who I actually recently met in the Tableau community, and I absolutely love how she shows up. She's a data analyst and a total Tableau enthusiast. And what I like is she's that generalist and a big picture specialist. And I think we can gather that by just these little fun facts, that she holds degrees in economics, engineering, and management. And she's also trilingual. So she really a varied background, which I think is a really big asset. So she has over 10 years of experience relating insights from numbers, data, and Excel tables. And I'm sure nobody's had the Excel face when she's created stuff. So she's super happy to have found the Data Fam and Tableau, and also just other people who are just as enthusiastic about clearly communicating and data storytelling. So Johanne, why don't you go ahead and take it away? Oh, Johanne, also, as we were doing our tech check, here's a little like fun thing. We were trying to get like the lighting right, as you do in a tech check. And I was like, you look like a beautiful ghost. So today, she is a beautiful ghost with amazing lighting. So Johanne, take it away. Oh, just need you to unmute.
There, can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Yes, awesome, fantastic. Just sharing my screen. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, and it's about accessibility. Woo!
All right. All right. So I am, yeah, as you can see, I am extremely white and pale faced. I promise I am alive. I'm not a ghost. I couldn't get the lighting to be any nicer. So that's how I show up today. And I would love for this presentation to be interactive. Now, if we were in a room, I'd use my arms and hands and make really big gestures, and I've learned to make it more accessible to Zoom, like keep my gestures within the frame of what you can see. And if you could just put all those questions and comments and answers when I actually ask you questions into the chat. And I would love it if Emily, you could sort of keep an eye on that and just like tell me what's going on. Chat or Q&A. I don't know which one is easier for. I think I can see the chat probably easier, and I think Emily can also keep an eye on the Q&A. So
either way, I'd like to do the Q&A only because it's easy for us to keep track of those questions. But if you prefer chat, that's perfectly fine.
I believe. Chat, because I actually see it. I can't have both of those. The my screen is too small. So yes, please chat. And I'm going to talk about how to make any viz or report or dashboard more accessible. So one of the things that I used to do a ton of, starting out with me, is rock climbing, and rock climbing needs equipment, needs knowledge, needs ability, and climbing rocks is not terribly accessible to people who don't have those things. So yeah, how can we make sure that our reports and vises are accessible to people who maybe don't have the equipment or the ability or the knowledge? Let's see. Who am I? I think Emily said it all. Yeah, I'm a generalist. I'm an engineer. I have work experience in marketing. I do speak English, French, and German. I am Tableau certified. I'm a mom, and I'm part of a Tableau group of people, Mums Who Viz, which is a fantastic group, and anyone who is a mom can join us. We have a Slack group and help each other out, not only with Tableau, a lot with Tableau. So that's just a plug right there for Mums Who Viz. And let's go on. What is accessibility? Accessibility is usually known as to Andre says he's a dad. Yeah, dads are fantastic too. This group specifically is for moms. You can always make a group for dads as well. So accessibility for disabilities, but disabilities can be permanent, temporary, or situational. Like right now, I appear to be extremely pale-faced, which isn't a disability, but it is definitely situational. But it could be someone who has a headache and situationally can't deal with loud noises. So yeah, it's disability. I encourage you to think about it and think about accessibility in larger terms beyond what we usually focus on. Oh my God, someone with vision impairment, how are they going to use my dashboard? Yes, that's very important, and it's cool to design for that. But think about it in bigger terms and make sure, yes, that things are perceivable, things are operable. Can you use it when you have an impairment? And can you understand it when you have that impairment? So does it mean you have to pick 2 out of 3? You know, like in project management where we always, like, things can either be cheap and fast, but they're not going to be good, or they can be, you get the drift. So can they be accessible, easy to understand, and on deadline? It is hard to fit all of those things into your products, and that's why I wanted to make this presentation really about 10 things that you can look at, 10 dials you can work on for every single presentation, every single viz, every single dashboard that you look at. I am not going to go into specific laws, jurisdictions in different countries, because it's just too big of a topic, and each legislation has different rules. I'm in Canada. We have different rules by province. You can imagine internationally it just explodes. So I encourage you to find out what is needed in your jurisdiction. Hands-on fixes. So back to the audience. Back where at the beginning of my career when I had freshly moved to France and was doing a presentation. I think it was one of my very first customer presentations in that new team. Traveled to a different country, it was North Africa, and I was just starting my presentation using slides I was very familiar with. And I noticed that I was being introduced not in English but in French. And I said, are we going to be doing this in English or in French? Well, of course it's in French. We're in North Africa, Johanna. What are you talking about? That was in Tunisia, by the way. Yeah, so I was doing my presentation with English slides, talking in French, which went okay because, improv is good. But think about and remember to ask what language your audience is going to speak, not only English, French, German, Spanish, but also, are they developers? Are they designers? Are they engineers? What language, what frame of reference do they use? And on to the 10 tips you can use. So number one, and this is dyslexia. So dyslexia, often when we think about dyslexia, we think about children who have a hard time learning to read. But dyslexia is actually something that persists into adulthood. And it means that people just take longer to perceive what's written, what's there in text. So it's about making it easier. It doesn't mean to not use text, of course, on your dashboard, but think about the fonts you use. Think about adding in more white space. Don't change the kerning. The kerning is how much space there is in between in between the the letters in a word. And don't use italics if you don't have to. And honestly, nobody has to. Use fonts that are clear, that are easy. Avoid the fun fonts, because fun fonts are really, really hard to read, even for people who don't have dyslexia. So just think about those things and make it better. Number two, color blindness. I think this is one that a lot of us think about when we think about accessibility. So red and green for good, for bad and good, that might be what everyone is used to in your company. But if you can add shapes, if you have to stick with the colors to double encode, that would be great. And use a website like Coblis, the colorblind simulator, to test how the different colors that you are using appear, or use Tableau's built-in palette. Number three, about data literacy, and back to your audience. How can they understand your data? Do they know the data? Are they used to the chart type? A week ago, I was talking to somebody who actually uses Tableau every day in their work, and we noticed that the area chart was really not familiar to them, and they didn't really know how to interpret the chart. So make sure you put, fancy chart types, other chart types are good when they're called for. But make sure you explain. Make sure that even if the person, does the person get that Excel face that Robert was talking about? Or are they are they going to get insight fast? and help them get that insight fast. More on color usage. When you use red and green numbers, well, red and green, let's go with red and black numbers in a column. And some numbers are red and some numbers are black, but the red numbers are not the negative numbers or the bad numbers. They're just red, and nobody knows why they're red. Well, make them all the same color, unless there is an actual meaning to it, right? Now, this one, how is clutter and accessibility linked? Well, thinking about accessibility in this bigger frame of mind, how do we make things easy to perceive and easy to understand for anybody, really? Remove things that are not needed. So the art here is to find that balance between context that is necessary and helpful for understanding and clutter, extra lines, extra grids, extra axes that are not helpful for understanding. And if you're wondering, yes, we do have I do have at the end of this a example of how to apply these principles. So it's not only I'm not going to kill you with all the theory here. Think about the context, how to make it more understandable. So again, this is big picture accessibility. What other information do I need to understand the report, the table, the chart, the dashboard? Maybe I need to know the time frame. Maybe I need to know where the data comes from, give the source, show a title, show what geography the data belongs to, or who came up with this data. Is it stable? Is it going to change? All these things that are totally obvious to you, but that'll make it so much easier for people to understand what you're talking about. All right, now thinking about comfort of people, do I have to turn my head sideways to read the label on the axis? Now maybe if it's a short word like year or date or time or or orders, maybe that's not so hard. But if you have 3-4 word axis title and it's sideways and your audience has to turn their head, that's not comfortable. So make it comfortable for your audience. Contrast and text size. I think you all know that writing things into tiny font is going to be really hard for people to read. But when you put red text in a really thin font on black background, that's going to be really, really hard in terms of contrast. I remember Fee earlier talking about making the eyes tear, and being really hard with dark grey and red in there is also emphasized. Yellow and green is also a lot of fun, yes. And but going back to some of those hard to. So this is not just color blindness, it's not just. It's just contrast. So use something like accessiblecolors.com and and test it. How big does my font need to be? Do I have to use bold font? And accessiblecolors.com, I really like it because it suggests what color you need to change it to make it better in terms of contrast. And a lot of us are stuck in brand colors. So, there is the long fight and the long working with others to change your brand colors. But even within, if you don't have that leverage, or if you need to work with what you've got right now, you can definitely work with double encoding things and making things easier within brand colors. Reading levels. This is aim for grade 5 reading level, and use spell check at the same time. Tools like grammarly.com will indicate the grade level for reading, and they'll do the spell check, and we all know that Tableau unfortunately doesn't have the spell check, so that's a good way to check if you're doing fine there. And number 10, think about the developers. So, your audience for your report and your dashboard is not only the people who are interacting with the finished dashboard. Your audience are also the people who are going to modify that dashboard in a year, in 2 years, because the data source has changed. So annotate your calculations. And it might be for yourself, when you go back to that dashboard in 2 years, you're going to be happy to have those annotations in there. Example. So these numbers are made up. The report is not made up. And it's a budget, it's a comparison of actuals, projected, all sorts of things. And it's in one of my least favorite fonts of all time. I'm seeming to go a bit over time, Emily. How should I handle that? Well, first of all, on this dashboard here, font choice. This is Comic Sans. Comic Sans is not only every single designer's least favorite font, it's also extremely hard for people with dyslexia to use. White space is okay here. Kerning is okay. Next one. Does the audience know the data? In this case, this is a budget report for people who don't usually see the budget reports. So no, they don't know the data. Are they used to the chart type? Well, marginally, because we've all seen tables. So, meh. Remove clutter. Well, yes, clutter. There are a number of lines and stuff in there that might not be necessary. And then we've got add context. I don't know who prepared this. Why? What's the thinking here? And annotate your calculations. So when I put this into Tableau, annotating calculations doesn't have to really mean a lot of time. Just write what you were thinking. Expected at 7 months, calculating the expected dollar value as of September, representing 7 of 12 months, that's enough. I'll know what that is about, and somebody else who's going to look at it will do too. And this is the sign report, but now I know who prepared it. It has a header. What is it about? actuals as percent of the current budget, we get already a whole bunch of more context up front. There is a chart in there suddenly. Well, yeah, tables are great, but maybe bar charts are better, or a good, a good complement. And then I actually did restructure the data in order to put a hierarchy in there. So again, that hierarchy adds context. Yes, there are expenses and there is revenue in an income statement. That's context for people who don't usually look at income statements. So yeah, I'm done. Will your audience go for a challenging climb? Are they equipped for it? If they're equipped for it, they're able and they're happy, why not? If not, a walk in the park might be better. Just make it easy for them. And Tableau has an excellent blog post about about how to make things more accessible. Just as just a summary of resources, actually. So I think I'll tweet that out later. And summary, these are the things I mentioned: dyslexia, color blindness. Do they know the data, the chart type? Does color convey meaning? Is it clutter? What's the context? Do people need to turn their heads to read stuff? Is there enough contrast? What about the reading level? And think about the developers. And I think this was it. I've enjoyed seeing your comments here. Does anyone have any other questions? Comments, notes?
Oh my gosh, so much. There's been so much good communication in the chat. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Emily. Yeah, thanks, Quentin. Sarah, oh my God. Thanks, Kevin, for posting that. Yeah, I think these are I think accessibility can be super overwhelming to think about when we think about it in terms of like, oh my God, do I need to make this accessible for someone who can actually not see anything and uses braille and keyboards? And that's terribly hard, but it's doable. But there's just so many more things that can make things easier to understand.
Absolutely. All right, Johanna, thank you so much for your talk. We are actually almost ready for Sarah Burnett. So Johanna, thank you. This has been great. I know everybody is loving it. Oh, Trish wants to know, what font did you use in your presentation?
I think it's Source Pro, but I'll look it up and tweet or put it in the chat, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.